Security cameras just captured footage that's going to shock the entire NFL world and send the Cleveland Browns into a full crisis that nobody saw coming. Four men, wearing masks, moving with clear coordination and purpose, ambushed Browns star safety Ronnie Hickman outside a venue in broad daylight in an attack so violent, so calculated, and so brazen that law enforcement sources are now saying this wasn't random, this was targeted, this was planned. And the people who planned it knew exactly who Ronnie Hickman was, where he was going to be, and when he would be most vulnerable. The CCTV footage, which has been obtained by investigators and portions of which have already leaked to media outlets, shows the entire ambush from multiple angles, and what it reveals about how this attack was coordinated is absolutely chilling. Police have already identified persons of interest. There are connections to people inside the NFL world that law enforcement is investigating right now. And the reason Ronnie Hickman was specifically targeted, the motive that detectives believe is behind this attack, is going to expose a dark underworld connected to professional football that most fans have no idea exists. This investigation is just getting started, and every new revelation is more shocking than the last. It started as what should have been an ordinary evening for Ronnie Hickman, the Cleveland Browns safety, one of the most promising young defensive players in the entire NFL, had finished a workout at a private training facility and was heading to his car in the parking garage adjacent to the building. It was late afternoon, still light outside, busy enough that nobody would expect anything dangerous to happen. Hickman had his earphones in, gym bag over his shoulder, keys in hand. He had no reason to be on alert, no reason to suspect that four men had been waiting for him for over an hour, positioned at specific points in that parking garage based on detailed knowledge of his routine. The CCTV footage, which investigators have been reviewing frame by frame since the incident, tells the story with brutal clarity. Camera 1, positioned at the entrance of the parking garage, picks up the four men entering separately over a 15-minute window, which investigators say is a deliberate tactic to avoid looking like a group. They're all wearing dark clothing and face coverings, and they each position themselves at different points in the garage in what law enforcement sources describe as a textbook ambush formation. Camera 2, positioned near the elevator bank, shows Ronnie Hickman exiting the elevator alone at approximately 5:47 p.m., completely unaware of what's waiting for him. Camera 3, positioned near the section where Hickman's vehicle is parked, captures the actual ambush, and according to sources who've reviewed the footage, what happens in the next 90 seconds is so violent and so coordinated that it immediately told investigators this wasn't a random mugging or a crime of opportunity. According to law enforcement sources who've been briefed on the footage, the first man approaches Hickman from behind, while the other three converge from different angles simultaneously, cutting off any escape route. Hickman, who's a professional athlete in peak physical condition, fought back immediately and effectively, which sources say likely prevented the situation from being even more serious. But despite his efforts, the four attackers, who appear to be experienced and physically capable themselves, overpowered him. According to sources, Hickman sustained injuries to his face, ribs, and right hand during the attack. He was able to call 911 himself after the four men fled the scene, and he was transported to a local hospital where he was treated and released later that evening. His injuries are serious but not life-threatening, according to sources close to the situation.
The Cleveland Police Department, which is leading the investigation with assistance from county and federal law enforcement, has been remarkably tight-lipped about specific details of the case. But sources who've been briefed on the investigation have been talking to reporters, and what they're revealing is far more alarming than a simple assault. According to these sources, investigators believe the attack on Ronnie Hickman was premeditated, that the four men had detailed knowledge of his schedule and routine, and that the level of coordination involved suggests professional planning rather than opportunistic crime. The specific question investigators are trying to answer right now is how four individuals knew exactly where Hickman would be, at what time, and which route he would take from the elevator to his vehicle. That information required either direct surveillance of Hickman over an extended period or inside knowledge from someone close to him who shared his whereabouts. That possibility that someone in Hickman's inner circle may have provided information to the attackers is what's making this investigation so sensitive and so explosive. Law enforcement sources say investigators are looking closely at everyone who had access to Hickman's schedule in the days leading up to the attack. That includes people at the training facility where he works out, members of his personal staff, business associates, and, according to sources, even people connected to the Cleveland Browns organization. The idea that someone with connections to the NFL could be involved in orchestrating a physical attack on a player is deeply disturbing, and it's why federal law enforcement has become involved in what would otherwise be a local assault investigation. Investigators are also looking closely at the 4 attackers themselves because the CCTV footage provides significant detail about their appearance, movement patterns, and behavior that investigators believe will eventually allow them to be identified, even though they were wearing face coverings. According to sources, law enforcement has already identified persons of interest based on the footage and on witness accounts from people who were in the parking garage during the incident. The investigation is moving quickly, and sources say arrests could come within days if the evidence continues to develop the way it has been. But here's where the story takes a turn that's going to shock everyone who thought this was just a random violent crime. According to sources with direct knowledge of the investigation, detectives have developed a theory about the motive behind this attack that has nothing to do with robbery, personal disputes, or anything that would typically explain a violent ambush of a professional athlete. According to these sources, investigators believe this attack may be connected to gambling, specifically to illegal sports gambling operations that have been operating in the region and that have reportedly been placing bets on the outcomes of specific NFL games and player performances. The theory being investigated, according to sources, is that Ronnie Hickman may have been targeted because of his role on the Cleveland Browns defense and his potential impact on upcoming games that certain individuals had financial stakes in.
This gambling connection, if it proves to be true, would be one of the most disturbing scandals in recent NFL history. The league has been dealing with gambling-related issues involving players and personnel for the past few years, but a situation where a player is physically attacked because of gambling interests connected to NFL games would be on a completely different level. Law enforcement sources say they're being very careful not to get ahead of the evidence, that the gambling theory is one of several being explored and has not been confirmed, but that the specific timing of the attack and certain financial transactions they've already traced are consistent with this theory being credible. The Cleveland Browns organization has been in full crisis mode since word of the attack became public. General Manager Andrew Berry held a brief press conference where he confirmed that Hickman was injured and is receiving medical care, expressed the organization's complete support for him and his family, and said the Browns are cooperating fully with law enforcement. But Berry refused to answer any questions about the nature of the attack, whether the organization had received any prior threats, or whether any Browns personnel are being investigated in connection with the incident. That refusal to answer those specific questions has only intensified speculation that there may be elements of this situation that touch the Browns organization more directly than they're currently acknowledging publicly. Todd Monken, the head coach, reportedly visited Hickman in the hospital the evening of the attack and spent over an hour with him. According to sources close to Hickman, Monken was visibly shaken by what he saw and by the seriousness of what happened. Monken released a brief statement saying that Hickman is strong, resilient, and surrounded by people who love him, and that the focus right now is on his recovery and on cooperating with law enforcement to ensure that those responsible are held accountable. Other Browns players have been reacting to the news on social media, and the messages are a combination of support for Hickman and anger about what happened. Myles Garrett posted a lengthy statement saying that Ronnie Hickman is one of the most dedicated and professional players he's ever been around, that what happened to him is unconscionable, and that he hopes law enforcement finds those responsible quickly and prosecutes them to the fullest extent of the law. Garrett also said something that's generating significant attention, hinting that the attack wasn't what it appears to be on the surface, and that there are forces and interests that don't have our best interests at heart, that people in and around this league need to be aware of. That cryptic comment has fueled speculation that Garrett knows more about the potential motive than he's saying publicly. The NFL League office released a statement saying they're aware of the incident and monitoring the law enforcement investigation, and that the league will cooperate fully with any requests from investigators. The league also issued a reminder of its rules regarding gambling activities and its zero-tolerance policy for anyone connected to NFL teams having involvement in illegal gambling operations, which many people have interpreted as a signal that the league is already aware of the gambling angle being investigated by police. Within the Cleveland Browns locker room, according to sources, the mood is a combination of shock, fear, and anger. Players are shocked because Ronnie Hickman is one of the most respected and well-liked members of the team, someone who's never been involved in controversy, never been associated with any criminal elements, and who by all accounts lives a professional, disciplined life focused on football. The idea that he was targeted and attacked feels completely out of nowhere to his teammates. Some players are scared because if someone is willing to attack a professional athlete in a planned, coordinated way in broad daylight in a public parking garage, it makes everyone wonder about their own safety. And players are angry because whoever is responsible for this violated the sense of security that athletes assume they have going about their daily lives. Sources inside the Browns say that the team has already hired additional private security for Hickman and has advised all players to be more vigilant about their routines, to vary the times and routes they travel, and to be aware of their surroundings in ways they might not have previously thought necessary. The team has also reportedly brought in security consultants to assess whether any organizational protocols need to be changed to better protect players and staff.
As the investigation continues to develop, new details are emerging almost hourly about the identities of the attackers, the potential connections to gambling operations, and the source of the inside information about Hickman's schedule. Law enforcement sources say they're making significant progress and are optimistic that they'll have answers to the key questions within the next week. But they're also warning that this investigation may be more complex than it initially appears, with potential threads that extend well beyond Cleveland and potentially into the broader world of professional sports and illegal gambling. For Ronnie Hickman himself, the immediate priority is physical recovery from his injuries and processing what happened to him psychologically. Being ambushed and attacked by 4 men is a traumatic experience, regardless of the outcome, and sources close to him say the Browns organization is providing him with full support, including counseling and security resources. Hickman has not made any public statements since the attack, and sources say he's been advised by both his personal team and law enforcement not to speak publicly while the investigation is ongoing. The broader implications of this attack, if the gambling connection theory proves accurate, go far beyond Ronnie Hickman and the Cleveland Browns. It would raise serious questions about the security of NFL players in an era when legal sports gambling has exploded in popularity, and where the lines between legal wagering and illegal operations can sometimes blur. It would force the league to examine whether its current protocols for protecting players from gambling-related threats are adequate. And it would send a message to everyone in professional sports that the stakes of gambling connected to athletic performance have reached a level of danger that nobody anticipated when states began legalizing sports betting. As of right now, this investigation is active, ongoing, and developing rapidly. Every hour brings new information, new leads, and new revelations about what really happened in that parking garage and why. Law enforcement is confident they're moving toward arrests. The Browns organization is trying to manage an unprecedented crisis, and Ronnie Hickman is recovering physically while processing an experience that no professional athlete should ever have to go through. The full truth of what happened and why is still being uncovered, but what's already known is shocking enough to have the entire NFL world on edge. CCTV footage has exposed a chilling, coordinated ambush on Brown star Ronnie Hickman that law enforcement believes was premeditated and potentially connected to illegal gambling operations. The investigation is moving fast, arrests may be imminent, and the connections being uncovered between this attack and forces operating around professional football are raising alarm bells across the entire NFL. The full story isn't out yet, but what's already been revealed is disturbing enough to change how everyone thinks about player safety in the modern sports gambling era.